Look, anybody got a better, fairer plan? Go ahead and do it.
There were 8 of us there, so that simply means 8 shares. 3 for us, 2 for you.
This is hopeless. We're gonna get no place if we're gonna continue listening to this old bag.
Hey, what are you trying to do, lady? You're trying to split us up so it becomes every man for himself?
And every woman for himself?
One more funny remark from you, Buster.
Well, let's get out of here.
Please don't argue anymore. You heard everybody's...
Look, we figured it 17 different ways. And every time we figured it, it was no good. Because no matter how we figured it, somebody didn't like the way we figured it. So now, there's only one way to figure it. And that is every man, including the old bag, for himself.
So good luck and may the best man win.
Right. Except you, lady. May you just drop dead.
All right. We all agree on that.
Hello, I'm film historian Tony Maeda.
And I'm Brad Shreve, who's just a guy who likes movies.
We discuss movies and television from Hollywood's golden age. We go behind the scenes and share our opinions, too.
And of course, being the average guy, my opinions are the ones that matter.
As does your self-delusion. Welcome to Going Hollywood.
Sylvester!
Well, I think, Brad, before we say one more word, we need to set some ground rules because we are taking on a chunk here. And if we don't have some ground rules, this can turn into a mad podcast.
I agree. You know, normally I have maybe 1 page up of notes, 2 at the most if I do a lot of side notes. I have 6 pages of notes on this podcast. And the reason is, I know we're not going to get to all of that, but I have, with this movie being so huge, I have no idea what gopher hole we're going to go down. So I'm trying. So you'll probably say something. I'm like, hold on. I've got that conversation somewhere here in my notes. I'm sure I had some idea about it. So we'll see how this goes. We might be editing some blank space while Brad scrolls through his pages.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's big.
It's a lot, but I'm glad we're doing it. It's another one of our summer movies. I think it's probably the hottest summer movie. Definitely. It's definitely almost as hot. I think it's probably hotter than 7 Year Itch because we're in Palm Desert. We're in Rancho Mirage in July. So we are talking about from UA in 1963. Yes. The ultimate. It's a mad world. I'm very excited to talk about this movie, even though it is a lot. It's a lot, this movie, on purpose.
It is a lot. There's big things about this movie. And, you know, they're kind of with a little bit bigger cast than normal.
Just a bit. I want to say, too, that this movie has a huge and passionate fan base. We recognize that. So what we're going to do here, what we're going to attempt to do here is give an overview of the film and tell you our impressions. This is by no means the be-all and end-all because this movie has many fan sites, websites, articles. I mean, it's the passion that people have for this movie is actually wonderful. I love it. It makes me happy when I see people get so worked up about this movie, as they should, because it's a wonderful movie and it incites all kinds of passions from people.
It is. Well, I love it anytime anybody's passionate about a film on, well, most films.
Me too. Especially from 1963.
Yes. I mean, this movie was an annual event in my household every time it popped up on television. I don't remember what network ran it every year, but we were always like right there in front of it. And I have mixed feelings like I do with every movie today, but it's still, I love so much about this film.
That's interesting. I have an interesting relationship with this film. This is one of the few, usually when I see a film, I have an immediate visceral reaction. And I remember seeing this film. A friend of mine was always talking about this film when I was a kid. And so I was very hyped up for it. And then I went and I saw it and I was like, really? That's it? I mean, it was very long. I was like, that's it? Really? Come on. But I think because I was so hyped up, because it's one of those rare films that to me, every time I watch it, I fall in love with it more and more and more. Until this last time I saw it, I couldn't stop smiling for the 3 hours that it takes to watch this movie because it's just so much fun.
Well, before we get rolling, let me just step aside because we're going to get really deep into all this. Let me just step aside and say what this movie is.
Yeah.
It's a mad world. 1963 film distributed by United Artists, written by William Rose and Tania Rose.
Yeah.
Directed by Stanley Kramer. And quick, easy synopsis, which is actually pretty easy to do with this film.
It is.
A criminal crashes on a desert highway, and in his dying breath, he tells a group of motorists about $300,000 buried under a big W in the fictional town of Santa Rosita, California. And unable to work together, the drivers scatter in a mad dash to find the treasure. And to help find the treasure and solve this age-old crime, the police, headed by Captain T.J. Culpepper, trust their instincts and stay back to allow this crazy cast to take them to the money.
That's it. That's it, exactly.
That's it. We're done.
For a movie which of varying lengths, from 201 minutes to 196 minutes, there's a different length for so many versions of this film. So we'll talk about that. But these 12 people, it's a pretty simple synopsis for this very, very big film. And it is big. And a lot of criticisms of the day of this film were that it was over the top and overwhelming. And that you kind of miss that's the point. It is over the top. It is overwhelming. It's exactly what Stanley Kramer was trying to make. He was going to make the comedy to end all comedies. And he did that by packing this thing chock full of comedians. Almost every single person, except for Spencer Tracy, except for the lead, is a very, very well-known comic. And not just the 12 major characters. There's also comic cameos throughout this whole thing, which are so funny and so wonderful. And I think that's why people get such a kick out of this movie.
Yeah, that was actually part of the fun, is because you don't always remember who were the cameos in here. And some of them are big cameos, and some are there's a lot of that guy cameos.
Yeah.
And
I know him. Who is that? I know that guy. Oh, yeah. Sometimes you're like,
he's been in 100 movies.
What's his name? What's his name? And then you're like, oh my God, that's Jerry Lewis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's for 2 seconds.
You're just sitting there watching for him. That's a huge part of the film.
Yeah, it's one of the very, very funny things. I want to give a little background about Stanley Kramer, if I may. I think it's important to talk about Stanley Kramer because Stanley Kramer is, of course, the driving force behind this entire film. For people who don't know who Stanley Kramer is, what I can do is I can throw a couple titles out at you, and you'll say, oh, that guy. So we have Judgment at Nuremberg, The Defiant Ones, Inherit the Wind, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Those are just 4. Okay, but when I say those titles to you, what do you think, Brad, when I say those titles to you?
They all sound like dramas to me. Guess Who's Coming to Humor is a little bit lighter side.
Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
High Noon's another drama on the beach. Big time dark.
Yes. He's a producer on High Noon. But the rest of those, he was producer and director.
Yes.
And the thing about Stanley Kramer, besides the fact that those are mostly all dramas, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, comedy drama, they're all message films. Mm-hmm. Stanley Kramer was very famous for his social message films. And what happened was that he had done so many of these social message films that New York Times critic Bosley Crowther said to him, I bet you couldn't make a comedy. Well, Kramer had done some comedies. He tried 2 comedies before, but they were unsuccessful. So Kramer went, oh, yeah? You wait. So he set out to make the comedy to end all comedies. But this is still a message film. That's what I find really fascinating about Mad, 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 Mad World. What is the message of this insane comedy, Brad?
Oh, my gosh.
I can give it to you in one word. One word. Starts with a G.
Greed.
Greed, exactly. The message of this film is the corrosive effects of greed. Because we have a handful of people here who are perfectly law-abiding, normal citizens who are just driving on a highway in the middle of Southern California, and they turn into maniacal criminals by the end of the movie because of greed, because they want that $350K, that 350 big ones under the big W.
Even our moral center falls prey.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to do Jimmy Durante there, and it came up big W. Oh, never mind. We'll put him in the begining of this episode, so you don't have to listen to
You'll never match the.
You won't. Yeah. You will not have to listen to my terrible Jimmy Durante impersonation. So this film, actually, greed was one of the unfortunately, there's a very famous silent film called Greed. So they really couldn't call this film Greed. But a few of the other working titles when they were putting this together were So Many Thieves, Only in America. They settled on It's a Mad World. And they're like, okay, no, we need more mads. Let's get some more mads. So I think they went to 5, and then they went to 6, and they went too many. Let's go to 4. So it became It's a Mad, 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 Mad World.
And I think Mad World would make a good song.
What do you think of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, the title song from the film?
You know, I have finally reached the point that when I say the name to people, I can say it without having to think about how many mads fit.
Yeah,
they just
it's
kind
true,
of
right?
roll out. There's a time you have to like sit and write it down or count. Or it's an awkward name, but it works. It's memorable.
It works.
It's memorable.
It works. But the song was nominated for an Oscar. This film was nominated for 6 Oscars. It won 1 for Best Sound Effects Editing, which, God, was that deserved, because the sound effects in this film are phenomenal. It's such an art for itself. It's incredible. But it was also nominated for cinematography, color, film editing, music score, song, sound, and sound effects editing.
And
It won for sound effects.
I know Tom Jones won for best
film
score that year.
Oh, the best score, yeah, yeah.
Or best original music. And I don't know if I don't even remember if I've ever seen Tom Jones, but I have a hard time believing any film can match what this film had. It was bold, it was brash, it was cartoonish, it was Looney Tunes, it was all over the place. It was just as chaotic as the movie, but it worked.
Exactly. Well, what Ernest Gold, who wrote the score and who wrote many, many of Kramer's scores, was doing was he put a carnival theme behind it. It's like a carnival. It's a circus, because this movie is a circus. These people are in a carnival, and he has that wonderful bouncy. I mean, it's in my head. I can't get it out of my head after. I mean, it permeates the movie, and it's so much fun. It's like in Foul Play, the chase in Foul Play, and that fun, wonderful music in Foul Play. Same thing here. The music adds so much to this film and gives it so much of its energy and its drive, and I just adore it. I adore it.
Well, going back to What's Up, Doc, we talked numerous times about it was a cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is totally a cartoon, and the music makes it very clear.
It does. It does. But I think what's unusual about this film is how it's shot, because it is shot in not just CinemaScope. It is shot in Ultra Panavision. All right, so I got to give, if it's okay, I'd like to give a little bit of a context about what Ultra Panavision is and where we were in Hollywood as far as the size of films at this time. Is that okay?
If it's what makes this movie just so fabulous to look at, I would love to hear it.
Okay, so most films today that you see in the theater are in aspect ratios of 2.35 to 1. Okay, that means the screen is 2.35 times wider than it is high. Ultra Panavision is 2.76 to 1 aspect ratio. So the screen is 2.76 times wider than it is high. Now, people get confused about this because this film, as you know, this film premiered at the famous Cinerama Dome in Hollywood.
The first film.
Yes, and Cinerama, people think this film was in Cinerama, and it is and it isn't. Cinerama originally was 3 cameras in sync, filming a scene, and then projected in 3 projectors that were in sync. So you had 3 different panels. This isn't that. This is one mofo wide lens filming this whole thing.
And I'm going to jump in.
Mm-hmm.
This movie was number 3 of the top grossing films. The one before this, How the West Was Won. If anybody wants to see an example of what Tony's talking about, watch How the West Was Won, and most of the viewings you'll see 3 squares on your screen.
Exactly.
So they had to squish that movie together.
True, that is true Cinerama. This is not true Cinerama. This is, as entrepreneur Mike Todd said, Cinerama through one hole. And that gives you an idea of what kind of guy Mike Todd was. Mike Todd was actually inspirational for this, because his film Around the World in 80 Days was an inspiration for these big roadshow films. He was also Mr. Elizabeth Taylor #3. But anyway, that's what that is. So it's not Cinerama. It is actually Ultra Panavision, but it's still huge. So when you're watching this, I imagine when you watched this when you were a kid in the 70s, 80s, you watched it like I watched it. Well, I saw it in the theater the first time, but even then, it was pan and scan because screens were square.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't this, you need this wide scope, this wide screen for these vistas to really get the impact and the beauty of this film.
Yeah, I don't remember the TV, but it was long ago in a land far, far away from here, and would just sit on the floor laughing hysterically at this film.
Yeah.
And when I watch it now on a much clearer screen, it's just, wow.
I love a really wonderful, beautiful print of this in its proper aspect ratio. There's nothing like it. You get the size of it. And that was very different. This is the first comedy, really successful comedy, that was shot in this kind of incredible aspect ratio. Usually that was reserved for dramas or epics or musicals. Think about The Greatest Story Ever Told. Big scope. Ben-Hur, same thing. Musicals, all those big musicals of the 60s that were shot that we now watch letterboxed because they're huge, wide screens. So it's unusual because a comedy, we talked about this a bit with Auntie Mame and how Rosalind Russell was so startled by how big the sets in Auntie Mame were, because the usual theory is that comedy is intimate. Comedy is small. Drama is big. So what Kramer was doing here was really going against the grain of the whole paradigm that comedy is intimate. But he does it because if you notice, even though the screen is wide, the shots are all very intimate. If people are talking, they're talking to each other. If they're in a group, it's a very tight group. So it's not, he works within he uses the Panavision screen so brilliantly. In that case, there'll be one person talking on one side of the screen, another person talking on the other side of the screen, and there'll be something in the middle to see, which I think you know what scene I'm talking about. The very end, where there's a big letter, I won't say what the letter is, in the middle of the screen, and you have two people talking to each other, and we, the audience, see it because of the way it's shot, but they don't. It's a brilliant use of widescreen. The second thing I want to say, and this is, I promise I'll keep this quick, is that, and this is another thing that people have about this movie they don't understand. I don't think anybody today hasn't got, a lot of people don't have a concept today of what a road show was. A road show presentation. Had you ever heard of a road show presentation, Brad?
I only know now for one reason. I could not for the life of me figure out why. In one place it was saying this movie was 3.5 hours long, and in another place it was saying 2.5 hour long. I looked at the ones that we own, which is kind of somewhere in the middle, and then I couldn't access that, so I pulled it up on Amazon, which was a different length, and so I had to look up and say, what the fuck is going on? And now I know. You tell everybody else.
What a road show is, along with screens getting wider in the 50s to basically combat television and the erosive effects television was having on films. Not only did films get wider, they got longer. Before the 50s, and people don't understand this either, this is a weird concept, there were no set showing times for films. You could walk into a film when it was halfway over, and you'd watch the rest of the film, go out, get your popcorn, come back, the movie would start again, and then you'd stay in the movie until the part you walked in on. You're like, okay, I've seen the movie, which sounds so crazy to us right now, today.
That sounds nuts.
It's nuts, but that's how movies were shown. It was continuous. They were continually showing. What a roadshow was an event. It was usually always a big movie like Ben-Hur, like It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World, like the musicals, like Sound of Music, Hello, Dolly, the big ones. Because you would have, it was like a Broadway play, basically. You would reserve your tickets. You have reserved seats. You sometimes had to get your reserved tickets weeks in advance. So you were ordering tickets for a film, not a play, for a film weeks in advance. You had an overture, even if it wasn't a musical. This film was not a musical. It has an overture. You had an intermission with an entr'acte of music, and you had exit music. You also had souvenir programs. You had, there were huge screenings movies could be in movie theaters for over a year on roadshow engagements. And then once they played out their roadshow engagement, their big premiere, which was usually Los Angeles, and Chicago and New York. Then they would go into general release, which was basically they come to your hometown. And they would usually lose, because very few theaters had the capacity to show these huge, long films and make money. They would lose all this stuff. They would lose their overture, they would lose their intermission, and they would just play continually like they've always played. So when you're watching a print of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, and you're like, why is there an overture? What is this? What is an intermission? What's going on here? That's why, because it was a roadshow presentation. And when you're watching that, the people are trying to be faithful to its original presentation. Whew.
I heard it equated to IMAX today, which is really not as a great thing to compare it to, because that's not as big and bold as what we're talking about, but probably the best example today. It's a special thing to go see in IMAX.
Yeah, and there's not, I don't think I haven't seen a film in ages, but I didn't say that. I haven't seen a film in ages with an overture, or, from 2025. West Side Story, maybe. That was a while ago. But the thing about that is it's a real immersive experience. You have to give yourself over to it. It's obviously an evening's entertainment. And that's also why there are so many different runtimes of this movie. So I'm just going to give you the ones that I found that I think are correct, and from sources I think are verifiable. They're all over the place. They're all different times, because this is always changing. But this is what I have. So the preview version, before the film premiered at the Cinerama Dome, inclusive of all the intermissions and the overtures and the exit music, ran 210 minutes. Okay? That's more than 3 hours. At the premiere, I have 201 minutes, which is still over 3 hours. Then a few weeks later, they cut that original roadshow down to 162 minutes. And then when it finally went into general release, it was cut to 154 minutes, so it could play continually at your neighborhood theater. Now, in the 90s, it was reconstructed, but just as we talked about with A Star is Born way back in our first season, they couldn't find all of the cut footage that was cut, because Hollywood didn't care. When they were cutting the movie, they threw it out, unfortunately. So if you're watching a reconstructed version, just like A Star is Born, there are scenes they could not find in which they insert stills, and the soundtrack is still there. So the most prevalent version now is 163 minutes, I believe. And there's the reconstructed version using stills and 35 millimeter footage is 197 minutes. I sound like Sid Caesar when I'm trying to divvy up the shares. Does anybody know what I just said? Anyway, that's the end of my technical stuff for now. I'm not going to go any more into this, because I'm sure if we still have people, God bless you for sticking around. We appreciate it. Let's get into this movie, Brad.
Let me just give the time frame here, because just very quickly, because we got so much else to talk about. But this was 1963. The top movies of 1963, to give you an idea, they're kind of all over the place as far as types of movies. We have Cleopatra, How the West Was Won. We have this film, Tom Jones, Irma La Dolce?
Irma La Douce.
Thank you. I don't think I've ever even heard of it.
Has one of your favorite actors. It has Jack Lemmon in. Jack Lemmon.
Oh, really?
Shirley MacLaine and Jack Lemmon. It was their follow-up to The Apartment.
I'm shocked I don't know it. Other notable films, Lilies of the Field, which won Sidney Poitier's Oscar, HUD, Son of Flubber, Dr. No, Bye Bye Birdie, The Birds. You can tell they were all over the place. And this was actually kind of a dark year. Kennedy was shot not long after this movie premiered.
It was.
In August, we had MLK and the March on Washington, his I Have a Dream speech. And actually that same month, Moscow and the U.S. opened up their hotline to help prevent an accidental nuclear war. So it was a heavy period.
You know what else?
And I think people needed what else?
You know what else heavy happened in 1963 to 64 that we've talked about?
What was that?
Judy Garland's show premiered.
Yeah,
and featured so many actors who were in this movie, by the way. P.S.
I knew that because I heard that's why she wasn't in this movie, and I'll have you talk about that later.
Yeah, allegedly she was going to play Mickey Rooney's wife, and I'm like, he doesn't have a wife in this. What?
It
would be a cameo. It would have been a cameo.
He was going to actually play the Milton Berle role, and she was supposed to play his wife in that. I don't know how true that is, but I've seen that.
I have a whole list of maybes, wannabes,
yeah. There's always those.
Yeah.
Yeah, the list is huge. With this many people, you can only imagine how many people they went through.
Yeah, 63 was a dark year. I agree with you on that. It really was. Yeah, it was.
Should I go to the supporting cast? Because you talked about, or you haven't even talked about the main cast.
We haven't really talked about the main cast, no. Well, I think we should do is talk about just how it came about briefly. I'm not going to, because I guess a whole spiel about road shows and, Ultra Panavision and stuff like that. So I just want to say, so it was written by William Rose, as Brad said. Now, William Rose was a British writer. He had worked primarily for the Ealing Studios in the UK, which, by the way, I want to do a film from Ealing, particularly The Lady Killers. He wrote The Lady Killers, which is a wonderful, wonderful film with Alec Guinness. And there's actually a character, the main character in The Lady Killers is named Mrs. Wilberforce. And we have a Wilberforce in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. Because Rose liked to reuse names, fun names like Wilberforce. That's a great name. So he envisioned this comedy about greed. And it was his idea to use as many famous comics as he could fit in one movie. I've heard this movie being called a murderer's row of comics. And boy, is it ever. I think we should probably talk about some of those comics who are in that murderer's row of comics. Do you want to take a stab at starting it? Who the main people are?
The main cast, certainly. I'm going to bunch them up together in relationship to who they mostly traveled with.
Oh, that's a good idea.
First, we have Milton Berle as Russell Finch. He is a seaweed salesman trying to develop a seaweed industry at a time when I don't think it was all that popular. And he also has a very nervous condition.
Yes.
His wife, Dorothy Provine, who plays Emmeline Finch, she's probably the most disillusioned of the bunch when all this is over.
She's not very interesting. She's very, yeah.
And then we have his wonderful mother-in-law, a person who's singing I'm not all that fond of, but my God, I love her as a comedian, and that is Ethel Merman.
Her greatest screen performance ever.
Absolutely.
Ever.
And when I saw that with literally her being bounced up and down, upside down, I was like, oh my God, bless that woman.
I have a question for you before you go any further.
Uh-huh.
How many times does Ethel Merman go ass over tea kettle in this movie? Do you know?
No, I don't know.
I count 3. Okay, I count 3, including the fabulous last ass over tea kettle scene on the banana peel.
I can guess the 3.
Okay, see if you can guess them. Go
One
ahead.
where they were trying to shake the keys out of her.
Well, that's 4 then. I didn't count that one. That's 4.
Oh, okay. 'Cause the 2 others I can think of are the one you mentioned when she slips and falls on the banana peel.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also when the car crashes and she flips upside down into the front seat.
Correct. There's one more.
Well, I don't remember the other one.
The other one is at the end of Spencer Tracy's double runs into Ethel Merman's double, and she flips up on her ass and lands in a big box in a cart. She's like, "Get me out of here!" Anyway,
Yes.
we'll talk about the Merm. Believe me, I got a lot to say about the Merm in this.
Okay. Further down the list, we have now kind of sort of part of this group. We have Terry Thomas, who is J. Algernon Hawthorne, who you may not know his name. You would know him by face. He's a great actor. Dick Shawn, who plays Sylvester Marcus, Mrs. Marcus's son.
Sylvester!
I don't think we ever hear her name. It's always Mrs. Marcus.
Yes.
The next group, 2 of them only, it's Sid Caesar and Edie Adams as Melville and Monica Crump. And that's actually the 2 that I heard were supposed to be Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland. Then the next group, we have these 2 guys, Buddy Hackett as Benji Benjamin and Mickey Rooney as Ding Bell. I don't really know.
I love that name.
They were just, Mickey Rooney was like this suave, like I could see him hanging out the lounge.
They were supposed to be
with a martini.
I think they were supposed to be screenwriters. I think. I might be wrong about that. I have read that they were
different characters to be hanging out together.
But I can't imagine Buddy Hackett being a screenwriter. Can you imagine Buddy Hackett?
No, it just seemed like an odd pairing. But they were fun.
But the
together.
Names, Benji Benjamin and what's Mickey Rooney's name? Ding Bell.
Ding Bell. Then we have Jonathan Winters as Lenny Pike. He is the most physical comedy in this film, and actually he says it launched his career to a small degree. Not that he didn't have one beforehand.
Definitely.
But this is when the world knew about Jonathan Winters. He probably had the best thing in this film as far as standing out. And then last but not least of the big stars, one that I'm usually not fond of, but he was perfect for this role, and that's Phil Silvers as Otto Meyer. Now, Phil usually plays a slimeball character, and it is no different in this film.
Not at all.
And for some reason, I liked him in this film. It was always the same character, which kind of like Jack Benny did the same thing. And it worked.
If there's a villain in this movie, it's Phil Silvers.
Oh, God, yes.
As Otto Meyer, who originally was going to be called, can you guess what his name was originally going to be? Oscar Meyer. But they're like, we can't call him Oscar Meyer. We'll call him Otto Meyer. But Silvers said that he actually was surprised. He thought that the character of Otto was going to be a little more benevolent than he was. He wasn't going to be quite as Machiavellian in his manner as he ended up being. So yeah, if there is indeed a villain in this piece, it's definitely Phil Silvers, and the comeuppance he gets from Jonathan Winters is beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Yes,
well, you forgot you listed the comics, but you forgot the linchpin. You forgot the biggest.
Oh my God, the guy,
the biggest one of all.
The guy at the very top of the list. I can't believe, because he wasn't with the group out running about until the very end, and that is Captain T.J. Culpepper, played by the wonderful Spencer Tracy.
Spencer Tracy, his penultimate film. We'll talk about Spencer Tracy in this, but he's the linchpin. He's what keeps it all together. He's what keeps this madness. He's the eye of the storm. You know what I mean? We need an eye. We need a calming eye. Otherwise, this movie will just go way off the rails, even more than it does. What I think is interesting is that, it was a point of pride to so many comics to be asked to appear in this film. There were a couple comics that Kramer neglected to ask, and they never let him forget it. One of which, according to Kramer, was Don Rickles. And every time Kramer went to see Don Rickles perform, Don Rickles would call him out from the stage and say, "Why, Stanley? Why? Why?" But it was truly a point of pride for so many of these comics to be asked to be in this. And there were a lot of comics who were not in this. These comics, I think what's important to point out is, other than Spencer Tracy, these are not movie stars. These comics were TV stars, nightclub stars. We don't have Bob Hope in this movie. We don't have and I was going to point this out, we don't have Lucille Ball in this movie. We don't have big comic names who were still making movies. So some of the people who were approached to play in this movie who actually said no were Lucille Ball. Lucille Ball couldn't do it. She was going to play one of the wives. Joan Davis, Imogene Coca, and here you go, Brad. You dodged a bullet here. Can you guess who I'm going to say?
Martha Ray.
Martha Ray.
And I didn't even know that.
Yeah, Martha Ray did not do it. So Brad is happy about that. And for the part of Mrs. Marcus, the Ethel Merman part, they asked Mae West and Sophie Tucker.
Oh, see, I can't. It's one of those things where, that would have been terrible, but you can't say that. It just is hard to imagine anybody. But
you kind of wonder how much of this is tall tale and how much of this is fact.
Yeah,
I believe this. I believe this roster list. I believe that. But sometimes you got to wonder. And Sergeant Culpepper was the original idea was that the Spencer Tracy part, Sergeant Culpepper, would be played by Jack Benny. And Jack Benny has a cameo in this, which we'll get to. But Spencer Tracy had a relationship with Stanley Kramer. Spencer Tracy, at this point in his career, it was very tricky. He was a very sick man, and it will only get worse. And in the last years of his life, when he could do a film, he would usually work for Kramer because Kramer had his back. Because Spencer, they wouldn't insure Spencer, and Kramer always, would always be there for him, had his back, said, "You're still going to be in our film." So they had a great relationship, and that's why Spencer Tracy's in this. But I also think I want to say that, along with the special billing for these comics, there was a special tier system for payment. Oh. So you had these top 12 got a certain amount of money. Well, first of all, Spencer Tracy got the most because he was Spencer Tracy. And then you have the comics under him that Brad just mentioned. They got a certain amount of money. And then underneath, you have the featured players. The people like Andy Devine, like Jimmy Durante, like Joey Brown, like Jim Backus, Norman Fell. These people were at a different tier of payment, obviously. And then you had the cameos, which I think a lot of them were done for free. Don Knotts, Jerry Lewis. Mm-hmm. I mean, some Buster Keaton for a second, Buster Keaton's in this.
Yeah, I heard he wasn't happy.
Well, he was.
He had scenes cut.
Here we go in another legend. He was originally supposed to play Jimmy Durante's part. He was originally supposed to play the Smiler. Because how funny, because Buster Keaton's whole persona was the great stone face. He was totally blank. So it's funny that he would have a character named Smiler. But what happened was that they didn't think that Keaton could really give it the oomph that Durante gives it in the very beginning. When he's talking about the big W, it's under a big W. I tried it again. It didn't work. So they switched roles. And because the character that Buster Keaton plays, his name is Jimmy. So it's kind of interesting. And these two had a relationship. They worked together in the 30s, not very well. So anyway, that's going off topic. All to say that this was a very, very prestigious thing for these comics to be in this film. And for most of them, it is their biggest film role ever.
And, I don't know if this counts as a cameo because she wasn't that huge star like these others were. But as I'm listening to Culpepper on the phone, I'm like, that sounds like Selma Diamond. Is that Selma Diamond playing his wife?
Yeah.
It has to be. Sure enough, it was. Great voice. Great choice.
Yeah, we know who else is in this, who is Bobo Lewis. Bobo Lewis, who we talked about last year during our Bewitched episodes. And I thought for a minute, I knew it was Selma Diamond, but I thought, oh, that could also be Bobo Lewis. Bobo Lewis plays the pilot's wife who does the sign of the cross when Sid Caesar and Edie Adams are taking off in the plane. Anyway.
And Tony has not scratched the surface on the number of people that stand, and they aren't all comedians, but there are so many people that come into this film that you would never think would be in this film. And tell us who Zazu Pitts is, Tony. Have we discussed her before? We have, haven't we?
No, we've never discussed Zazu Pitts.
Because I know it was her final film, and I certainly know her.
Zazu Pitts goes all the way back to silent film. In fact, she was a comic actress, but she was also in the film Greed, the Erich von Stroheim film Greed, which was a drama, not a comedy. It was very unusual, but Zazu Pitts was a character actress in silent film and then a comic character actress in the 30s. Once you see her face, you can't forget it. She's wonderful. And yes, this indeed was her last film. She plays the receptionist at the police station. So I guess what I want to say about this cast is, and this is what William Rose thought, and this is what Kramer said, and this is very true, is that typecasting saves you exposition. What do we say all the time? What do I say ad nauseum? That actors bring certain qualities of their own personality to their roles. So you don't have to say to somebody, oh, Phil Silvers is a real son of a bitch, because you know he is, because it's Phil Silvers. Yes. So when he was casting these roles, that's where he was going. He was thinking, okay, what baggage do certain people bring with them? You have an actor like Jonathan Winters, who was kind of unknown, but Jonathan Winters has an innate sweetness, yes, which just lends itself to the part of Lenny. You love Lenny because he's such a sweetheart. The Merm, come on. We talked about it before. Big, brassy, loud. Who is Mrs. Marcus? Big, brassy, loud. That's what's so wonderful about the way he cast this film. He kind of went against type with some characters. Milton Berle didn't usually play a weak character. He was usually a pretty strong character. But in this film, Russell is a very weak character. Yeah. But something funny about Milton Berle is, as you can imagine, you have all these comics, and they're always trying to one-up each other and outdo each other. That's what this movie's about. And Milton Berle had an annoying habit of always being the last one out of a shot. So even if he was in a group of people exiting a shot, he would find a reason to turn around and run back. For some reason, he would find some motivation, so he would be the last one out of the shot. Because that's what these comics did. They were always trying to one-up each other.
And that was smart casting in that sense. I will say, for those that are trying to find some depth in this film, it could be considered one of its negatives, because these characters are mostly, and mainly because time doesn't allow it, mostly undeveloped. They're really cartoon characters, not cartoon characters, but caricatures.
Archetypes.
Thank you. The brash mother-in-law, the weak son-in-law, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So are you going to get to know these characters on a personal level? No way.
No.
But it's not that kind of film. But if that's what you're looking for, you're kind of like, that is an argument I've heard, and it's legit to a degree if that's where you wanted to go.
No, this isn't Ingmar Bergman and Death playing chess.
Well, there is a middle ground,
It's a mad, 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 mad world. These are all archetypes, like Airport. Think of it as the funny version of Airport.
Yeah.
Because their motivations, their inner motivations, their inner character struggles are not the point. They all have one motivation. It's to get the 350 G's. And just for context, Brad, how much are 350 G's in 2025?
And that's actually, I want before I answer the full question, I want the listener to think about this. If you had a situation with a group of people, and if you were honest and not, if you wanted to be fair and not greedy, would you come in agreement of $300,000 that you could take home with each of it split among 12 people? You'd get $305,000. I think you probably would. Because in today's value, that $350,000 now is worth $3.7 million, which divided amongst the first 12 people would be $305,000 apiece.
Okay, that's interesting.
As a kid, I was watching this. I'm like, that's only $350,000.
Yeah.
Why they're destroying everything for $350,000? That's crazy.
Yeah,
it makes sense, but do that and it makes sense.
Yeah, that's so funny. And that the whole splitting of the shares scene with the brilliant Sid Caesar. So, that was the first scene that was shot with the whole group.
Oh, really?
The whole group of them together. It was shot, I think, on a Saturday, a very, very hot Saturday. I guess we should say this is on Highway 79 between Palm Desert. Where does Highway 79 go? That's your neck of the woods. I'm sorry, Highway 74. Highway 79 is where I'm from, in Pennsylvania. Highway 74, the Palms to Pines Highway in Palm Desert. And this was the first scene shot. And it was July. We're in the summertime now. Brad, what are the average temperatures on the Highway 74 in July?
Well, they're usually a little bit hotter than we are. Typically this time of year, we run 104 during the day. And we are high desert, which is what they call us because we are a higher plane. Palm Springs area is lower level, and they are hot as hell.
Yeah. So these actors in this makeup, in these heavy costumes, there's nobody in a bikini. Well, Barry Chase is in a bikini, but we'll get to that. There's nobody in that group. They're all very dressed. So can you imagine? They filmed that scene all day because they were all ad-libbing, and they finished at the end of the day, and Kramer said, we're going to do it again tomorrow. And they're all like, excuse my French. Oh, I say it all the time. Oh, fuck. We better just stick to the script. And they did, and they got it the next day. But what's so funny about that first scene where they're divvying up, Sid Caesar has this whole long monologue, very complicated, about how much each share would be and who gets what share for what car and who's going down to see. It's insane. And the funny thing about Sid Caesar is one of the most notorious things about Sid Caesar was when he was doing his live TV show, Your Show of Shows, Caesar's Hour, he could never remember his lines. So he would ad lib. That's what was so brilliant about Your Show of Shows, and what's so brilliant about Caesar's Hour was he was an incredible improvisational comic. He remembered those lines, and he's brilliant at it. I guess we should say that Sid Caesar and Milton Berle were two huge giants of early television. So for people who don't know who they are today, maybe people know them now. Sid Caesar played the gym teacher in Grease. And Milton Berle's just that annoying man who was always in drag. But they were giants. They weren't by this time. By this time, their heyday was in the 50s. But I think that's amazing. I think it's amazing. And I read that the part of Melville Crump, played by Sid Caesar, was originally, they talked about perhaps it was going to be played by Ernie Kovacs. Ernie Kovacs was a comic in the 50s and 60s, a very famous comic, who was married to Edie Adams and who tragically died in a car crash right before filming started. And Sid Caesar kind of came in as a replacement. But Edie Adams obviously stayed in because Ernie Kovacs left her in a lot of debt and she had to pay it off. So they did say that. But Edie Adams is beautiful, beautiful. She plays Monica. Beautiful, beautiful actress. She was in Little Abner on Broadway. Don't you think she's a gorgeous woman?
She is a gorgeous woman. But you know who I thought would be good for that role? And this is a person that actually was in the film very briefly.
Mm-hmm. Who's that?
Carl Reiner. I pictured Carl Reiner in that role.
Carl Reiner would have been great. Yeah. It's just something about Sid Caesar, though. Sid Caesar brings such gravitas to everything because he's a big guy. Especially back then, he was a big, big guy. And he brings such gravitas and he brings leading man energy. If there's a leading man in this film, it's Sid Caesar. And, you know, as we know in the film, if you watch the film, he spends most of this film with Edie Adams trapped in a hardware store, which is one of the most brilliant. It's a movie in itself. Everything they do to get out of that hardware store.
That is before my time. I know Sid Caesar from your show of shows, and mainly I know him from being on talk shows talking about those early days of television. It was nice to see him in a film role, and that whole scene in the... You know why it was such a good scene? It was total chaos and madness, but you related to this couple, at least I did, to this couple more than any of the others, because they really were kind of, in a way, the most grounded.
They were the family couple. He was a dentist. Yeah. They are. Yeah, exactly.
They were the most grounded.
They're the most identifiable.
Even though they were just as greedy.
Yeah. You know what's interesting, too, is that Kramer also designed this so the cars represented the actors. And you think about it.
Yeah.
Milton Berle and Dorothy Provine and Ethel Merman were a little affluent, so they had the Chrysler Imperial. Sid Caesar and Edie Adams were, as we just said, the doctor, the family. They had the station wagon. Mickey Rooney and Buddy Hackett are the flashy ones in the little VW Bug. And, of course, there's a big old Lenny, Jonathan Winters, in that big truck. And as you said about Jonathan Winters, this really put him on the map. And he was the one everyone came to watch. Spencer Tracy. Now, Spencer Tracy was ill during this. He was not in the best health. We just said, he had difficulty getting insurance. He was diabetic. He had heart problems. It was terrible. But he had emphysema. He would come to the set on his days off to watch Jonathan Winters. He was so enamored with Spencer Tracy loved comics. He loved comics. He was so enamored of Jonathan Winters. He would come to the set and watch. But I want to ask you a question. Can you venture a guess as to who was not enamored with Jonathan Winters during the making of this film? One of his cast members?
Oh, one of his cast members.
Yeah.
Well, he mainly interacted with Phil Silvers.
He interacted with somebody else near the end.
Oh, Mickey Rooney?
This guy was really into fitness.
Oh, into fitness. Oh, Dick Shawn.
Dick Shawn. Sylvester! Yes. Dick Shawn, the wonderful Dick Shawn. He was a nightclub performer. This was his first big movie as well. And they had a rivalry, or at least Dick Shawn did, because he was also an offbeat improvisational performer. And you can see it in this movie. That's who he is. That's clearly his persona. He was also into fitness, which is why he's in those short shorts through most of the film. It's very funny because this rivalry was pretty one-sided, because I think Jonathan Winters, I mean, come on. We know who Jonathan Winters is. He's Robin Williams before Robin Williams. And they were together. They were even funnier. So that was kind of interesting that there was a rivalry between them. Had you ever heard of Terry Thomas before this movie?
I know Terry Thomas just from many things that he's been in. In fact, he was in some I Love Lucy episodes, wasn't he?
He was on the Judy Garland show. He's another one who was on the Judy Garland show, as was Dick Shawn.
Yeah, I knew Dick Shawn was. I know Terry Thomas because of things he's been in. I would never have known his name had it not been for this movie.
Yeah, he plays J. Algernon Hawthorne. He was an English music hall comic. He was just then making his introduction to American audiences. And he's wonderful. He plays the botanist. He's so funny. His interactions with Ethel Merman, when Ethel Merman's just looking at him like, what the hell? Who the hell are you? She's a real American. She's a real American broad, I'll tell you. Do you want to talk a little bit about Mrs. Marcus and Ethel Merman? Because you love the Merm. You love her when she's a comic.
I do love her when she's a comic. I first want to go back to Terry Thomas and Jonathan Winters, because
oh, please.
I kind of looked back. I did a little search to see what the different actors had to say about this film, and all of them, when it came later years, they looked on it very fondly. Not all of them remembered it necessarily that fondly at the time, if no for no other reason, it was hard to work in. I mean, like you said, it's physical work. It was hot, sweaty. So I'm not saying anybody really hated it, though there may have been one or two that I recall. But they had mixed feelings. Terry Thomas and Jonathan Winters were the two that had nothing but love from this film from beginning to end. Jonathan Winters loved his role. He was very grateful that it made him stand out as a star. Terry Thomas was honored that he got to work with these people and just had a great time. And that kind of fits both of their personalities, I think.
Can you imagine what it was like for some of these actors to say, and they've never done films before, or they were just starting out in films, or they were TV comics, to be told that they're going to be in a film with Spencer Tracy?
No.
Can you imagine?
No, just the
Buddy?
Yeah, I mean, just many of these people. It's just hard to imagine.
So you're Buddy Hackett, and you're told that you're going to be in a film with Spencer Tracy.
Yeah.
And your scene with Spencer Tracy is basically Spencer Tracy looking at you, and you looking back at Spencer Tracy. And that's your scene. But I'd take it in a New York minute, let me tell you.
And before we get to Ethel, it is really interesting. If you watch this film, there are only a few scenes where this whole cast is together.
Yeah, very true.
Most of them were filmed apart from each other. They probably really didn't see each other very often. But Ethel Merman is Ethel Merman as I picture Ethel Merman. She is obnoxious and brash, and I'll tell you, the cast said that she was. Not everybody really liked working with her, but as Stanley Kramer said, you can say one thing about her: she was 100% on par and nailed it.
Well, think about it.
He even admitted that she was difficult to work with. I mean, she would be. I mean, good God, just hearing her talk.
Think about it, though. She was the lone standout with all these comics. I mean, what a brass diva. I mean, that's her nickname, the brass diva. Because think about it, she had to be. She had some real balls of brass, Ethel Merman. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. You know, Ethel Merman's persona is pretty much who Ethel Merman was. She laid it on the line. She was straight. Now, everything in your face. That's who she was. That's showbiz, kids. And the fact that she could not only hold her own with this murderer's row of scene-stealing comics, but the fact that she comes out as one of the funniest is tremendous credit to Ethel Merman. It really was. Ethel Merman had been in film since the 30s. You know, she did films way back in the 30s, and she just could never catch fire in film. She didn't need to. She was the first lady of Broadway, you know? So this was about the time when she started coming back to Hollywood because she was tired of Broadway. She did Gypsy. She was like, I'm done with Broadway. That's when she was on the Lucy show, and that's when Lucy was trying to get that sitcom for her. And I think I called it Maggie Flynn, which was wrong. It was Maggie Brown. That never happened. This is the same time she did the Judy Garland show appearances. So it's all that era, you know? It's great to see her in color, too, to see that hair. So, I mean, the unfortunate thing is that Ethel really never took a hold on either. So this is funny. So when this was over, not long after this, she got married again. I think this was her third husband. And we talked about her third husband. She was married to him for 32 days. I don't know if I should even ask you to venture a guess who it was.
I've seen who she's been married to. It won't be a surprise, but I can't remember.
Ernest Borgnine.
Yes.
Can you imagine Ethel Merman married to Ernest Borgnine? Neither could anybody else. The marriage lasted 32 days, and in Ethel Merman's autobiography, she has a chapter about her marriage to Ernest Borgnine. It says, "My marriage to Ernest Borgnine" at the top, and it's a blank page. So there you go. That's Ethel for you. She was one of a kind, and thank God she's preserved in this film.
You know, there were three actors when they showed up on the screen I was most excited. One was Spencer Tracy, just because I needed a breather now and again, and I liked his humbleness in this film through most of it. The other one was Jonathan Winters, just because he was such a presence. And the third, the most standout, I was most excited when Ethel Merman was there, hands down.
It's just great. When you see these people, you're like, oh, this is going to be fun. Because they're so outrageous. They're so outrageous. You know, this film took 166 days to shoot, which, you know, it seems like a long time. But when you think about all the people in this film and the traffic direction and the special effects in this film are unbelievable. Yes, there's a lot of process shots. Excuse us. We need to have process shots. You know, you can't, this was before CGI. This was how they did it. You couldn't have put the actors in this danger. Although Milton Berle said, and this was verified, that one of the worst things about making this film was they all had to have plaster of Paris masks made of their faces. So their stunt people would wear the masks when they were stunting for them. It doesn't work. You still know.
I think it does.
Did you really?
because I kept watching for the stunt people.
Spencer Tracy. Oh God.
Well, I'm not saying that they were great, but I kept looking for bad stunt. Watch old Star Trek episodes. That's supposed to be Shatner. Oh, come on, no.
Yeah.
I kept looking for the bad stuntmen as always, or the stuntwomen. I was really impressed with how frequently they looked like them, because most of the time it was a far shot, like they're in their cars. I mean, this movie, you talk about practical effects. This was Crash Up Cars.
Oh, yeah.
Blues Brothers was like an afterthought after this film. I mean,
well, this was.
It's just like, I don't know how many vehicles they went through. It was a lot.
This was the granddaddy of car chase films, car crash films. No one had ever filmed cars like this in this manner. Now we think about The French Connection. We think about What's Up, Doc? We think about Foul Play. We think about Bullet. This was the first one. And when they saw the footage of the film, some of the actors, when they saw the film before they even started shooting, I think it was Milton Berle, he said that, why are you using actors? These cars are funny enough. You don't need us. Milton Berle also said that they got 2 scripts. And they were like phone books. They got 1 script for the dialogue and the second script for the special effects and the action. It's that complicated. And some of these special effects, which were real effects, the plane flying through the Coke billboard, I mean, that is an incredibly dangerous stunt, and it damaged the plane. Incredibly dangerous. The plane in the hangar, going right through the hangar, and that's insane. I don't know how many feet, clearance of about 4 feet, that's what it was, on each side for that plane to go through that hangar. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And that is one thing I remembered most as a kid. We were always in awe. Wow.
It's incredible, right?
That's what we were always in awe. See, I was in such awe I couldn't even say the word.
Who was in that plane with Buddy Hackett and Mickey Rooney that was supposed to be flying it, Brad?
Your favorite rich drunk, Jim Backus.
Do you know?
The man who made a career out of playing rich drunks.
His name is Tyler Fitzgerald in this film. Tyler Fitzgerald. But there's some speculation that Sherwood Schwartz saw this movie and went, Thurston Howell III right there. Because if you ever watch Gilligan's Island, it's the same character.
Yes,
what can go wrong with an old-fashioned? I mean, he's so many quotable lines. One of the most famous ones is when they're in the airplane, he says, "It's the only way to fly." And that's a reference to a famous commercial for Western Airlines. And the bird said in a Jim Backus-like voice, "It's the only way to fly." People thought it was Jim Backus for years, but it wasn't. It was another actor. But that's a great shout out. I mean, I love that. He is Thurston Howell. He is Thurston Howell III before Thurston Howell III came up. Yes, I love that. I love that. Okay, well, two of my other favorite characters, and we have to talk about them. And the real set piece of the first half of this film is none other than our friend Henry, Marvin Kaplan, and Arnold Stang as the gas station attendants who have a brand new gas station that Jonathan Winters completely, totally, utterly demolishes.
I'd say this movie gave those two kind of a cult following.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When they were doing screenings of Mad World, up until the early 2000s, he was there in a wheelchair. Marvin Kaplan was there because everybody knows him as Henry on Alice, and they know him from this film. But there's so many interesting things about this. So that set, that was a real set that was built. I don't know if you know this. If you know this, jump in. It was built on a corner in Palm Springs. We're talking about Palm Springs in the 1960s, early 1960s. Very little there. There ain't nothing there. You know what I mean? Even less than is there right now. And it was on this intersection. I don't know what the intersection was. Frank Sinatra Drive. And, just out in the middle of nowhere. Nothing but tumbleweed. And suddenly there's this beautiful big gas station there one day. And the residents were like, "Oh, we have a gas station. There's a gas station here. How great." And then a couple of days later, it's gone. Because Jonathan Winters demolishes it. Why does he demolish it, Brad?
Because Phil Silvers has convinced the gas station attendant. Phil Silvers is trying to get away from this guy because he screwed him over as he does everybody.
Screwed him over
he
big
convinces
time.
the two guys.
Left him on a little girl's bike in the middle of the desert.
So he convinces these two guys in the gas station that he is a killer who I think he's out of the psych ward. And so they tie him up, and Jonathan Winters decides to take revenge on them as he's trying to get away, and they're trying to stop him. It's hysterical. It's just a total slapstick. If you don't like slapstick, I think you'll still love it. It's just, you think this has got to be the end. This has got to be the end. This has got to be the end. And no, it's till there's not a toothpick left of that garage.
Oh my God. It's a genius effects. This thing is demolished, this whole thing. And the special effects person on this was a very famous man named Linwood Dunn. He's really the genius behind so many of these special effects in this film. To make that gas station fall apart the way it did, he had to slow down certain portions of the film so it made sense, because things don't always go the way you plan them in a film, especially, and they had like one chance at this. They're not going to rebuild that gas station and then do it again. You know what I mean? They had one shot at this. So it's incredible. This scene, I think what's interesting about this scene is, so it's Marvin Kaplan and Arnold Stang play the two gas station attendants. And Arnold Stang, if you notice when you watch this film, is holding his left hand oddly because he had just broken it. He had tripped near his pool at home, and he came to the set with a broken arm. And he was afraid that he was going to be replaced. And Kramer said, no, just put a glove on it and we'll work around it. But he's left-handed. So he broke his left arm and he's left-handed. So Arnold Stang looks kind of odd in this scene, the way he's holding his hand, and he has to hit Jonathan Winters with a wrench. And he's trying to, the pain, I can't imagine the pain, but hey, comedy's painful. So
it's an awkward character anyway, so it works.
It works for the character. That's what I was going to say. There are no accidents. It works for the character. These two nebbish characters who have this big, beautiful gas station, which is destroyed by this big lug, Jonathan Winters, to get back at Phil Silvers. Oh, it's a brilliant, brilliant bit. Brilliant piece.
And because you talked about where this gas station was located and where they built it, I'm going to segue this into talking about the geography of Southern California here, and how it's played out here. Now, I am happy to say that I lived very close to the park where the Big W was, but I was even more excited when I was looking online for all the different locations, and it said incorrectly that the garage was built in Lucerne Valley. Now, you probably never heard of Lucerne Valley because it's a crossroads village, about a 20-minute drive from me. It's actually where I have my post office box. Oh, and the reason it's there is because I was going to rent a house to use as an office, and the whole deal fell through. But anyway, so I put my post office box there. And I was so excited. They were listing that scene and all these other scenes that were filmed in Lucerne Valley, and I thought, I could see why. We have nothing but big, wide open desert here, but the geography doesn't look exactly, because our geography doesn't look like Palm Springs area. So that was all wrong, but it took me on this deep dive of the show. And I will say, if you can use this movie as a California travelogue.
Oh, yeah.
If you're interested in driving about 400 miles in a circle. Because some towns don't exist. The ones that do are oddly too close together or too far apart. They name a town that's not too far from my area that is just a few miles down the road from one that's in San Diego, which is almost a 3-hour drive for me. They spread towns apart. San Diego and Tijuana on the map are substantially pushed away from each other to make room for the town of Santa Rosita, which is the fictional town that this film ends in.
Right.
The geography is just another casualty of the madness in this film. And if you're not from California, you may not catch that, but boy, if you're from California, you're like, I was sitting there all my life I've tried to figure out where all this is, and I finally realized there's no way in hell to know, and it's probably on purpose.
No, it makes no sense. Directionally, it makes no sense. The way they're going, nothing.
And the reason I went on the deep dive with this one is because when Culpepper, Spencer Tracy, points at the map, he points right at the town where I live when they start talking about where these people were.
Oh.
But when they talk about them, they are nowhere near me. So that was why I'm like, okay, did they film it here? No, they filmed it. It was all over the place. So
Yeah, it's
kind of fun.
It is fun. It's fun because you just, like everything else, you just got to go with it. You just got to go with this movie. So many things in this movie do not make sense. Buddy Hackett and Mickey Rooney flying that Beechcraft through the Coke billboard and then managing to land that plane. I mean, come on. Let's really suspend our disbelief. How about Sid Caesar and Edie Adams decimating that hardware store? The things that happened to Sid Caesar, he almost gets electrocuted. There are fires. He falls off scaffolding. Paint falls on him. Shelves fall on him. Yet he's still able to get up and grab his shovel and run to that big W. And from day one, Jimmy Durante, they're two very funny in that very, very first scene. We're never going to get through this podcast if I go back to the beginning. But anyway, I'll just say really quickly, two things that made me laugh out loud. Of course, when Jimmy Durante finally dies, he's in this incredible car crash. He goes over this side of the highway, and the car flips down amongst these rocks, and he's still laying there somewhat intact. And, of course, the pièce de résistance of the whole thing is they think he's dead, but he's not dead. He gives his dying words about the big W and the 350 G's under the big W and go get it, go back to your old neighborhood and really, I'm doing a terrible Jimmy Durante, and really show off. And they think he's dead. And they're like, oh, he's dead. And then he comes back, Aunt Belle, forgive me, Aunt Belle. And then he finally really dies. And what does he do, Brad, when he finally really dies?
I love it because nobody says it like they would have in today's films. He literally kicks the bucket.
It is the first big belly laugh in this film.
It is. It's a good one.
He kicks the bucket, literally. It's so great. It's so great.
Since you've talked about the big belly laugh, can I go to my challenges with this film? Because I want to end on a high note.
Sure, of course.
And I don't want to make it sound like I dislike this film, because this film, I've loved it for years. But there are aspects of it that always bothered me, and they bother me more each year. And I think maybe it's because I'm getting older. Mm-hmm. One, it does drag. It does drag. It is long.
Yeah.
It is long. For example, the scene in the hardware store in the basement with Sid Caesar and Edie, it's a funny scene. But we really are seeing the same thing happen over and over and over. There is a lot of replay in this film.
Agree.
Like, how many times can we see people swerving out past each other? It's a lot of yelling, a lot of crashing, a lot of falling. And sometimes it seems like the movie is just screaming to make you laugh rather than trying to be funny.
I agree with you on that.
It's like a Saturday Night Live skit that starts out funny but drags on too long. Mm-hmm. And after the while, the chaos isn't funny anymore. It's just exhausting.
I get that. No, I agree with you in part on that. I do. Yes. One of the reasons for all the cuts all the time was because they were taking out repetitive things. They're like, we don't need to say that. We just said that, in 2 scenes ago. So that's true. The scene in the hardware store, I love the scene in the hardware store, but yes, it is too long. It's much too long.
It's always been my favorite scene. I'm criticizing it, but it's always been my favorite scene.
Right, but you got to give Sid Caesar and Edie Adams something to do while the rest of them are getting to Santa Rosita. So they make this scene so incredibly long. What I love about this movie is the way it's structured. Because as we get to the intermission, Kramer starts doing a lot of fast intercutting. It's like that. It was first done by D.W. Griffith back in Intolerance.
Yes. And I was literally clapping because I thought it was so well done.
And what they were originally going to do, Mr. Airport, was do split screens, which could have been really interesting. But they decided not to do split screens and show them each on their various, where they were at this point in the story. They do really fast intercuttings. And I like that better than split screens because the intercutting gives it an energy. It's getting faster and faster and faster and faster until finally we get to the intermission. And they're like, whew, we can take a break. But we really can't take a break because in the original, did you know this? In the original Roadshow presentations, during the intermission, when people went out and went to the bathroom and got their popcorn, they played police radio calls of where the characters were at this specific point in the story. So the story kept going even during the intermission. And I love that. And I love that when we pick up again with Act 2, it starts out very quietly, very softly, just that little pin spot that turns out to be the fuse of the dynamite that Sid Caesar is going to use to blow himself out of the hardware store. I love that. I love the structure of this. Yes, it's this unwielding, massive piece of work. And it's one of those movies where you got to give yourself over to it. And that's why there's an intermission. So you can go pee and take a break and maybe come back a few minutes later when you've had a little rest to digest it. I get that. I have the same criticism. Still love it.
The other criticism I have, and this is something I noticed as a kid, and as I get older, I notice it more. And again, it doesn't change the film, but the older I get, the worse it gets. And that is, this movie makes me sad.
Oh, really?
It's a morality play with no redemption.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah.
Nobody walks away better. They're all beaten up. They're all arrested, humiliated. As I said earlier, Spencer Tracy is supposed to be our moral compass, the authority figure. In the end, he gives up and runs off with the cash.
Yeah.
And with all of this chaos and these people all losing their minds, normal, everyday people who have gone into madness because of their money.
Yeah.
And they all lose everything. They all lose everything. And in the end, we're supposed to laugh because Ethel Merman slips on a banana peel. And it's like, what the fuck? I mean, that's not a punchline.
But isn't that genius? What is the most elemental laugh in film history from the beginning of films? Slipping on banana peels. Isn't it beautiful, genius, that is the final thing, that Ethel Merman slips on a banana peel? We've just been through 3 hours of cacophony. We've just been through more than 3 hours of cacophony and madness and things coming at us and things exploding and collapsing. And what is the final salvo? Ethel Merman slipping on a banana peel. And the first time I saw that, I screamed hysterically. It is so funny. Even though it's clearly her double, it's so... See here, you idiots. This is all your fault. If you hadn't... Ah! And she's... Excuse my Ethel Merman. Sorry if that got loud, people. It is...
Even Spencer Tracy got to laugh.
They start to laugh, and it's like... But what you're saying is exactly what we said at the beginning, is this is a message picture for all of Stanley Kramer's... Stanley Kramer does message pictures. The corrosive power of greed. These people are everyday people who turn into maniacs because of the opportunity for some fast cash. So it's interesting.
And the fact that nobody gets the cash at the end, it opens up and the money goes flying everywhere. So if you took out the humor, this has been a giant, exhausting mess of chaos for nothing.
For nothing.
For nothing. And even Kramer said, let me find this quote here. He said, I don't know if this is a direct quote, but Kramer said, beneath all the wacky stunts, it's really all about what greed does to people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when I saw that, I didn't know if it was a direct quote or they were quoting of him. So,
but it's true.
Yeah,
it's true. It's true.
So that I actually do end that movie feeling sad, even though the rest of the movie is fun. I love it every time I watch it. And like I say all the time, if nothing else for nostalgia's sake, and it is always funny. I'm always like, oh God, is it long? Is it sad? No, it's funny.
Well,
it's funny.
You hit the nail on the head though when you said as a cartoon, because think about it. All the things these people go through, they would have been dead. I mean, come on. Yeah, they're very injured in the end because they've been thrown all over the place. But some of the things these people go through would have killed a normal person. So you had to remove yourself and realize this is a little cartoony. This is a cartoon. So you got to remove that one level of awareness, suspend your disbelief in that respect to know that this is very much a cartoon. But my problem with this movie, but what happens at the end, it's like he's trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And my issue with the film is the ending, because there were that final scene where they're on the fire engine thing and they're being thrown back and forth. It reminded me of the Towering Inferno, when everybody's jumping on that lift to get out, and Richard Chamberlain jumps on the lift and then they all end up falling, the chair that's going to carry them out of the tower. Mm-hmm. So they all jump on that ladder from the fire department from that high rise. And it's 3 different methods of filming. He used, it was a real backlot of Universal. They use a matte painting and they use miniatures, and they all blend together perfectly. It's incredible. The filmmaking skill in that is incredible. Here's where I have the problem. It's not that visual. It's the dummies,
Yeah, they were bad. They
didn't quite have, now I am not throwing any shade on Linwood Dunn and any of these geniuses who put this film together. Don't get me wrong about that. We're so used to CGI now and people being able to do anything that we get kind of jaded. So they didn't quite have the technology to make that really, really believable. And some of the things that happened, like Buddy Hackett and Mickey Rooney bouncing up and down on the telephone wires, which is hysterical, but it's like, oh my God, that would have killed you 3 million times over. What are you talking about? Dick Shawn going flying, hitting that picnic table and going slide. Incredibly dangerous stunt. If that stunt man had missed by a few inches, he would have been dead. Slides down that picnic table and all the way down. Spencer Tracy going...
Oh, yeah.
Being on that palm fronds.
He flew into a window, smashed against the wall, and crashed down to the floor below.
The floor below, and he's getting licked by the dog, back and forth and back and forth.
Well, it's the dog's love that saved him.
Yes, well, the dog, if you notice, too, the dog, it's a reverse shot. It goes back and forth because the dog would only lick once. So Kramer had to make it reverse.
And it kind of added to the humor. But, here's what I got to say about the miniatures. This is something they didn't have that is a luxury filmmakers have today. Because of CGI... If there's a moment where it's easier just to do something funny, rather than get, Airplane is an example that did this, The Naked Gun did this, they fumble around a person that is actually really a dummy. You can tell it's not supposed to be a person, and that's part of the humor.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have worked back then.
No.
So they're kind of making fun of that time period when you kind of had a rag doll if it was something too dangerous for a person to do, and... You just kind of made the best of it. And they don't have that luxury back then. No, they didn't. And you have to put yourself, kind of like we just said about the 7-year itch, you have to put yourself in the mindset of 1955, of 1963, and realize what life was like in 1963. And the fact that this movie was so outrageous and so big for the time and so out of the ordinary, we're looking at it with our 2025 glasses on. We got to take them off and say, wow, this is spectacular. Even though we can sit here and go, that's clearly a dummy. That's clearly a stuntman. I am the first person to do that, and I'm the first person to say, stop it. You put yourself in that mind. And when you can do that, if you can do that, it's an incredible ending. It's a phenomenal ending. Yeah, and when I first realized how looking back can be difficult, when we did Alice. Yeah. And we were watching episodes that had outdoor shots that were so bad. Or, when they showed like when they were driving in the truck and you could see it was a truck sitting on a soundstage, so clear as day. It had nothing but a black background. And during that time period, you knew it was cheesy, but you're like, yeah, whatever. And you didn't think twice about it. But now we're like, God, that was so bad. How did they stand it? Yeah, well, we've gotten spoiled. We have gotten very spoiled. And personally, I prefer the 1963 version because I think it's so much fun. That final scene where they're all together under the big W, which is basically, 4 palm trees. I hope people have seen this movie. I mean, why would you listen to us if you haven't seen this movie? Which is actually a big W, and the way it's presented is so funny. It's funny that Dorothy Provine is the first one to notice it, and she's the one who's not interested at all in it, and she's the one who first discovers it. Yeah. And when they finally get the money, and then Spencer Tracy, because of personal problems, and his life has kind of turned, and is going to take the money and run, and they realize that he is stealing the money too. So they have the big chase scene, and they all end up, in that big tall abandoned building, and what we just talked about. How else are you going to end it? You have to have the big. You've just seen so much stuff. You've seen planes flying through billboards and under hangars and explosions. You got to end it big. So I think maybe Stanley Kramer was a little bit of a victim of his own ambition in this ending, because it would be so difficult for anybody to pull that off. And he does about as good as any other person I can think of that did that. That's my opinion. So, what more do we want to say about It's a Mad, 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 Mad World? Well, I have to give it credit for one thing, and you may tell me I'm wrong about this, but I think I'm pretty right. You mentioned Tower and Inferno. Yeah. This cast was pretty incredible to get these comedians together. I mean, we had, again, it's like a time capsule. We had Sid Caesar, Milton Berle, Ethel Merman, Jonathan Winters, Phil Silvers. It's a time capsule of mid-20th century comedy, but even more, it's the grandfather of the ensemble cast that eventually was made mostly into disaster films. It's an interesting take. Yeah. Were there any before this that had such a huge ensemble cast?
Yeah, there's the first. Well, okay, you talking all-star cast or ensemble cast?
All-star cast like this. Bring back a lot of stars that some were sunsetting, not hugely so, but their big days were over.
Well, yes. As I said at the beginning, Around the World in 80 Days, which was kind of the inspiration for this, because it was kind of like one of these travelogue all-star casts, people making cameos, and it was produced by Mike Todd, the, Cinerama out of one hole guy. And that's where that idea came from, that big, beautiful, so it was Around the World in 80 Days. But this is the first comedy really to attempt it. There was one called Pepe, which wasn't a big hit before this, but this one was the hit. This one was a huge hit. So despite, as I said before, this film has such a passionate and loyal fan base 60 plus years later, that the legacy of this film, it's only grown in stature, I think. The love people have for It's a Mad, 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 Mad World has only grown in stature. I feel like it's a Chinatown of big star comedies, because it's what so many filmmakers aspire to. After this, you had Blake Edwards tried it in The Great Race. There was a movie called Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines from 1965 also, both from 65. Spielberg did it in 1941. All those Cannonball Run movies, remember those in the 80s? Mm-hmm. You can draw the line all the way up to 2001 Rat Race. You can draw the line from that all the way back to It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. And I'm sorry, but It's a Mad, 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 Mad World does it much, 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 much better.
But considering this movie was made for less than $10 million and grossed worldwide $60 million, you can see why people are trying to copy it.
Of course. Is that your way of giving the stats on the movie? Do you want to give the stats on the movie?
No, you actually made me think about it. No, it's I don't have a whole lot of stats other than we talked about the when it was made and that sort of thing. But Rotten Tomatoes critic score is 69%, and I think most of those were from back in that era. A lot of people were kind of uptight about the film critics. In fact, Clyde Gilmore from Canada, a top film critic in Canada, said, 3.5 hours of tiresome proof that Stanley Kramer should stick to dramas and leave comedies to his competitors.
Oh, wow. He's been proven wrong.
Yes. The audience seemed to like it much more than the critics. They liked it 83%.
Yeah. And it's only grown since then. It's only grown in regard, in legend. Do you know there was even a Bollywood remake of this film in 2007?
I think I did hear that.
It's called, I hope I get this right, please don't hate me, Bollywood, Dhamal? Is that right? Dhamal?
Do you know what that means?
I have no idea what it means.
Oh, I have no idea. I was hoping you could tell me.
Oh, I thought you maybe knew what it meant. If anybody knows what it means, let us know. Text us, email us, write us.
So in the end, think about it. Did I like this film? The first time Reese and I watched it together, we said, nah, let's buy it, because we'll watch it over and over and over again. So
Dhamal, or It's a Mad, 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 Mad World?
Oh, no, I've never seen Dhamal. I've never watched a Bollywood film.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yes, I think the proof of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World is this. It has survived the test of time. You listed a whole bunch of movies from 1963, many of which you never even heard of. Irma La Douce, Tom Jones, the ones that you listed. Who knows those movies now? Or if you do know those movies, they're horribly, horribly dated. They seem archaic. This movie, even with the 60s cars, even with the 60s attitudes, it's kind of timeless. And I feel funny saying that because a couple episodes ago I said that it wasn't timeless, but it is timeless. I was wrong. Yeah. I was just trying to plug one of our upcoming movies. It is timeless. Good comedy is timeless. That's why we can watch a silent comic. We can watch Buster Keaton in his silent era. We can watch Chaplin and laugh, Harold Lloyd. And we watch Ethel Merman, Sid Caesar, Milton Berle, Terry Thomas. We can watch them because it's timeless. And that's what's wonderful about this movie. And that's the true legacy of this film, is its timelessness.
And something I gave it as a kind of a ding, very lightly, that actually did help to make it timeless is that it doesn't go deep.
Right.
We know these cartoon characters. Bugs Bunny will last forever because we don't know his motivations and we don't care. He's just funny. And we know these folks' motivations. It's all money. But beyond that, we don't know anything.
We don't know anything about him other than Milton Berle sells seaweed. and he invested Ethel Merman's money, and she ain't happy about it, let me tell you.
$15,000.
She's not happy about that one bit. Well, Brad, wow, that is a lot. We actually talked about it's a mad, 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 mad world in under 90 minutes. It's pretty amazing.
That is amazing.
I was afraid we were going to have it as long as the film itself. Is there anything we want to say about the podcast or anything at all?
Well, we have been neglecting to tell people first to please contact us. We would love to hear from you. You can reach us at goinghollywoodpodcast@gmail.com, or you can, in the show notes, you can click and it'll text us. We can't respond, but we'll respond on the air. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear suggestions, ideas, and Tony is always putting together our playlist, and we haven't mentioned it in ages, but on Spotify, there's a link in the show notes for this. There is a Spotify playlist from movies that we've talked about, of different scores and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately, there's not one for this movie. This movie is not on Spotify, unfortunately. However, it is on YouTube. The beautiful, fun, hysterically funny Ernest Gold score is on YouTube. So I'll put the link there. It's up to you whether you play or not. I listen to it because I think it's a wonderful score.
It would be a great score to listen to while you're cleaning the house.
Absolutely. Give you energy.
Yes, exactly. And aside from that, made it this far, please rate and review the show, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to this podcast.
Well, Brad, I think it's a mad, 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 mad world. And there's only one thing left to say. But I don't want to say it. So let's not say goodbye, you big, stupid, muscle-headed moron. Let's say au revoir.
I can't even say come back. No, let's say goodbye.
Sylvester! Bye, everybody.
That's all, folks.